Hello and welcome to another episode of Gov2 TV here on fusedlogicTV. I'm your host, Walter Schwabe. I've got a special guest on the show today. We try to pack our shows with really interesting people, and today is no exception. We have a wonderful guest out of Seattle, Washington today, Bill Schrier, who's the Chief Technology Officer for the City of Seattle. Bill is joining us live via Skype today. Bill, how are you?
Hey, Walter, I'm doing great today. Seattle's a wonderful place, and today is no exception.
Well, you know what? The Emerald City is one of my favorite cities of all time, and I love going down there. And in fact, you and I first met just over a year ago, or around a year ago now, I guess, at OpenGov West when it was hosted there at Seattle at the Seattle City Hall.
That's exactly right.
And that was a really well attended and terrific conference. I really enjoyed it, as I think that you had mentioned you did too.
We certainly did. It was actually interesting to just get together the folks from the Seattle region here, from King County and many of the suburban cities. But I thought it was phenomenal that people like you and Chris Moore traveled from Saskatchewan. And we had other folks travel from Vancouver and British Columbia and Portland, Oregon to join us as well.
Yeah, there was a nice mixture there. Although, just to quickly clarify, we're in Alberta, and I don't want to call you out on that, but we're not from Saskatchewan. We actually have quite a rival between our two provinces on the football side of things. But Chris and I were able to come down from the Alberta side of things, and there was a nice mixture of people who did travel into your city to attend. Since OpenGov West in last year. We were talking about some things that Seattle has been doing, and so, for example, your main website is seattle.gov. You have since, and I believe now, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Bill, when did you launch data.seattle.gov?
Well, data.seattle.gov went live in January of 2010, so just about the time of OpenGov West.
Right.
And since then, we've been adding data sets to it, and we've also seen applications written against it.
So then let's talk a little bit about that and the evolution of it since it's been well over a year now. So you've got some great history there in terms of what's happening. How has it evolved specifically? I know that you guys had a hackathon last August, but leading up to that, though, why don't you tell us a little bit about the story of the data website and how it's moving along?
So that's a great segue, Walter. Of course, the whole openness and transparency and open data movement started with Vivek Kundra when he was the Chief Technology Officer in Washington, D.C., and he was the first to put some data sets out on the web, and then he sponsored Apps for America, development of apps specific to Washington, D.C. And when Vivek moved on to become Chief Information Officer for the United States, under President Obama, one of the first things President Obama did on his very first day in office, as a matter of fact, is declare his commitment to openness and transparency. And both of our recent mayors, Mayor Greg Nichols and now Mayor Mike McGinn, have similar strong commitment to openness and transparency, making data available so citizens and constituents can do their own work. They can see what's going on with the government. They can see what's happening in their neighborhoods, and they can actually help themselves to be more safe, secure, and improve their quality of life. For example, one of the things that we put up within the last year is crime data sets. So you can actually go to data.seattle.gov, and you can find out what crimes have been committed in your neighborhood. Very small things like abandoned cars, right up to pretty serious things like assaults, for example, or attempted homicides. All of that information is now on data.seattle.gov, so you can actually go there, find out what's going on in your neighborhood, and that'll help you to inform you if you're leading a block watch, for example, to help you and your neighbors be more safe and secure. But there's a lot of data that's up there from parks, what's going on with calendars, for example, building permits, business permits, and a lot of information like similar to that.
So what we're finding then is that the data that's most related to, say, my daily life, okay, as a resident or as a citizen, and those of those folks down in Seattle are probably getting used the most. Would you agree? Is that what you're seeing down in Seattle?
Yeah, I would say that's generally true. An example is one of the first things we put up was 911 calls. So in other words, when Seattle citizens call 911, they get either the police department or the fire department, depending on their need. If they're having a medical problem, for example, they'll be connected with the fire department, and a medic unit may very well be dispatched. So one of the first data sets we put up was 911 calls. Now, or fire 911 calls specifically. Where did the apparatus go? What address did it go to? And what's the nature of the call? Was it a fire or medical emergency or automatic fire alarm? We see a lot of traffic on that particular data set. And a lot of it is just people interested in what's going on in their neighborhood. They happen to see the fire apparatus racing by and kind of wonder what's going on. And they also want to obviously protect their neighborhood and help their neighbors as well. So that's a data set that gets a lot of hits, for example, as well as things like the crime data set.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, emergency responses, and it's incredibly important to have effective communication. Just recently up here in Alberta, we had a major forest fire go through one of the towns here in Alberta of the town of Slave Lake. And, emergency response and having data related to that is incredibly important, although there's a lot to be learned about what happened here and how emergency response, I think, will definitely change in this province as it relates to issues like that. So, Bill, from that data, having it available, but then seeing it being used sort of in different ways maybe that you anticipated, how is that helping your department in particular maybe do the job differently, if at all?
Well, at this point, I don't know that departments are necessarily doing things differently because of the open data. Certainly, one thing it's helped us with is public disclosure requests. So here in the States, as well as in Canada, most of the information that government collects is open for public disclosure. A citizen makes a request for a police report, for example, or an accident report, or even a building permit, and we in government need to make sure that we respond to that request and provide the requested information. By putting it up on data.seattle.gov or on our website, seattle.gov, you can actually pull down police reports, redacted police reports from seattle.gov, for example. We actually reduce the number of public disclosure requests we get. So it actually reduces the burden somewhat on departments to provide the information because people can actually pull it up for themselves. Kind of like the airline reservation systems. It used to be you just call the airline or the travel agent and they do all the work for you. Now you have to do the work yourself on an airline travel site. Well, the same thing's true with government. Now you can do the work yourself to get the information, but you can do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when you want it, not just when the government office is open.
Right, information on demand and in real time. That's an interesting point that you make, Bill, because a lot of people would like to arm themselves with information that they would normally take a whole lot of hoops to maybe jump through to get that document that they're looking for, regardless of the type of document. And so I can see where that is obviously a benefit, and that is a strong area of open government that is an outcome. Now, thinking about just touching quickly on for those government administrators that are watching the show either now today live or will later be watching later on demand, one of the clear outcomes you just mentioned there was the efficiency and probably cost savings as it relates to taking a less level of requests for information. Are you seeing those kinds of efficiencies happening elsewhere within the city?
Absolutely. And I'll give you one example just from media. As we know, the media, the way people get their news and information is changing. It used to be that every city had a major newspaper, or maybe two major newspapers, as well as commercial television stations. There might have been 5 news outlets that provided a lot of the news and information. And of course, the circulation of daily papers has gone down, and well, viewership of TV has held steady. But this very show, fusedlogic, for example, and other similar shows show that we're getting our news and information from a vast variety of other sources. Similarly, we no longer get news solely from the daily newspaper, but we also get it from neighborhood blogs. We have a lot of neighborhood blogs in Seattle. Well, the proliferation of news outlets means there's more demand for information from government. There's more people calling the police public information officer or the building permits public information officer to get that information. What we've done is we actually have established about 15 Twitter accounts for Seattle departments, so departments regularly tweet about incidents and information. We also have a set of blogs. It's called CityLink, CityLink, one word, .seattle.gov, that shows all the internet-connected blogs where we push out information in a timely fashion, not just for the neighborhood blogs, but for constituents as well. So again, this saves public information officer time in terms of responding to queries because we can get the information out directly using CityLink and Twitter.
Well, you know what? I'm really happy that you mentioned blogging because actually, in fact, that's you are the chief Seattle geek, and in fact, that is your blog. And I wanted to highlight one particular blog post that you have on your blog that kind of stuck out for me based on recent events, and that's the one where you had said Osama bin Laden has changed government technology, and it changed it. And I believe that you tweeted out saying it changed it for you personally, and then you referred to the blog post as to how. Why don't we just take a minute or two and go through that blog post a little bit and help people understand the impact, I mean, beyond the large scope impact, but in particular how it's changed your life and maybe possibly in the city of Seattle lives as well as it relates to the change in technology?
Well, Seattle, like many cities in North America, has the potential for disasters of various kinds. It varies from city to city or region to region. In Seattle's case, the earthquake, a major earthquake which might strike the West Coast, Vancouver or Seattle, San Francisco or Los Angeles, is something we always want to prepare for. And other places of government have as a primary responsibility that disaster preparedness. Well, Osama bin Laden, in what he masterminded for the World Trade Centers, showed us that disasters are not just natural, they also can be man-caused or terrorism. And they can come right here to the shores of America or here to North America and can strike almost any city. So I personally spend a lot of time on issues that relate to Homeland Security and specifically communications networks. How do we better communicate in an emergency? How do we make sure our firefighters, our police, our first responders, but also our second responders, water, electricity, transportation, for example, have communications, reliable communications, both day-to-day for those daily incidents, but also during either a natural disaster such as an earthquake or a terrorism event. We have to make sure those communications networks stay up. And I spend a lot of time working on that particular issue.
Well, you know, there's a lot of information there to be learned on your blog, and it's quite deep and wide in terms of the breadth of information there that can be reviewed. So I'd highly recommend folks go to schrier.wordpress.com and tune in to what Bill is writing about on a. How often do you blog, Bill? Is it do you try to get something done weekly or more frequently than that?
I should blog more frequently. It's usually about once or twice a month. The Osama bin Laden is relatively recent, and I've got a couple more that'll be going up here in the next couple of weeks.
Right on. Terrific. Well, again, thank you for blogging and helping the rest of us understand some of the things from your perspective, and especially given your history as a retired officer of the U.S. Army. You have a unique perspective on Homeland Security. So that's a really interesting area of focus. I wanted to switch gears again here a little bit and talk about there was a recent article that you had shared related to bring your own devices. within a government work environment. And I want to refer to a techflash.com article that was written by Ashlyn Green, I guess is how we pronounce her name. And you know what? Here at the City of Edmonton, in our local region, Chris Moore, and you'd mentioned Chris earlier, he's the Chief Information Officer for the City of Edmonton. They have adopted, when he took over the job, a sort of similar environment, and there was some growing pains. And in this particular case, you're referring to security as one of the growing pains. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and how some of those things crop up when you start talking about bring your own device?
Absolutely. So we live in a world where everybody carries a cell phone, and at least 3/4 of the folks carry smartphones now, whether they be an iPhone or an Android phone. The iPad as a tablet device has exploded into consumer conscious as well, and there's going to be a lot of iPad-like tablets that people are going to use and carry with them personally. So all of a sudden, both employees and consumers are carrying these portable devices and accessing them. Well, what happens is, from a government point of view, of course, we want to make sure that information is kept safe and secure, because we do actually have information about citizens, some of which is public and some of which has to be held private. And we really don't want it escaping or being downloaded to personal devices and potentially leaving city government, especially if it's got social security numbers, dates of birth, or other personally identifiable information. On the other hand, should a city employee have to carry 2 cell phones, one a BlackBerry, there's a good Canadian company, a BlackBerry, which is our standard in city government, plus a personal device? Do they have to carry a city government laptop as well as an iPad or another tablet? Or can we allow people to use their personal devices and thereby also save the city some money in terms of deploying phones and tablets? But we struggle for the privacy of information. We struggle because of cybersecurity, hackers and viruses. You probably have seen recently Lockheed Martin, a U.S. defense contractor, was recently hacked, again, incidentally, by people unknown. And certainly city, county, and state government or provincial government could be targets of hackers as well. So we definitely want to allow employees to use personal devices, bring their own devices. We're trying to balance the security and privacy of information against the ease of use for employees.
So just before we go to a break, just to follow up on that, what would be, let's say if there was, again, administrative folks watching from elsewhere, what would you say would be the first 3 steps that you would recommend that they take when they're considering a bring your own device policy within their own departments?
Well, in terms of city government, the steps they should take?
Yeah.
So the first thing I would do, and I recommend this for anybody who carries a smartphone, is put a password on it. Because the things are so easy to lose. So every government device ought to have a password that when you power it on, you've got to enter the password, or like in the case of a smartphone, when there's a timeout, enter the password. So if it's lost, the information on the device is not lost. The second thing I think that needs to be considered is the role of the person who is carrying the device. Many of the people in a city or provincial government do not carry personal information, or they do not carry secure information, and they're good targets for a bring your own device program. Where there are others, particularly in law enforcement, for example, where you would want to be very careful before you allow them to bring their own device. So those are a couple of considerations, I'd say.
Yeah, those are good tips, and absolutely important ones, especially the password. It's such a simple thing, and it seems like an extra step, which of course it is, to protect the phone. But you're absolutely right. If that phone was left, on a table somewhere or something, or got misplaced, there's oftentimes a whole lot of data on it that could be taken down. So, Bill, if you can stick with us just for a few more minutes, we're going to take a quick break here. I want to play a video and we're not going to play the whole thing, because the whole thing is like over 9 minutes. So I'm going to get Evan just to play just a couple of minutes of this video, and then we'll come back. But how this all came about was I found it via Twitter and on the Twitter feed and the Gov 2.0 and Twitter hashtag. And, what's interesting about it is that Grand Rapids, Michigan was recently put on a list of one of the 10 top cities that are, in fact, dying in the U.S. is, I think, the verbiage they used. And Grand Rapids responded, and this is one of their primary ways of responding to the fact that they're not dying. That's their message. So we're going to cut to this video where we're going to watch just 2 minutes of it, and then we're going to come right back with Mr. Bill Schrier, CTO of the City of Seattle.
Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys are drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Can you help me out a little on that? Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys are drinking whiskey and rye, saying this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. You can sing all the words if you know them. Long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. And I knew if I had my chance that I could make those people dance. Maybe they'd be happy for a while. But February made me shiver with every paper I deliver. Bad news on the doorstep. I couldn't take one more step. I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widowed bride. But something touched me deep inside the day the music died. So bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Did you write the book of love, and do you have faith in God above? If the Bible tells you so, now do you believe in rock and roll? Can music save your mortal soul? And can you teach me how to dance real slow? Well, I know that you're in love with him, 'cause I saw you dancing in the gym. You both kicked off your shoes. Man, I dig those rhythm and blues. I was a lonely teenage bronc buck with a pink carnation and a pickup truck. Oh, but I knew I was out of luck the day the music died. I started singing, bye, bye, Miss American Pie.
Has been getting Grand Rapids, Michigan, a whole lot of, I think, positive exposure. I haven't seen anything negative out there about it. It's all been really quite positive about it, and clearly it's manufactured, it's all set up, it's choreographed, but it's really cool. So, Bill, you know, looking forward now as we get towards the end of our show, tell us what's coming up in the future for the City of Seattle. What are some of the events or some of the major projects that you're about to launch that you'd like to let people know about and pay attention to?
And this is actually relevant to the Grand Rapids experience, is broadband. The Mayor McGinn here in Seattle just announced that we're going to make some city conduit available to improve broadband connectivity, fiber connectivity to one of our older neighborhoods, Pioneer Square. And you probably have heard that Kansas City, Kansas, and now it's Kansas City, Missouri as well, Google is going to build a fiber to the home or fiber to the premise network in those two cities. And I think really high-speed broadband is important for the economic development and the economic growth of cities. Even at Grand Rapids, if it had a high-speed broadband network, it basically means that people could live wherever they want. They could work from home and they wouldn't necessarily have to follow the jobs, which oftentimes will go to sunnier cities or to certain cities. So I think high-speed broadband access here in Seattle, but nationwide and throughout the world, is important for both economic development and quality of life. Another project that we're going to try to build on is to improve the use of social media here at the city. Things like Twitter and blogs and Facebook are lots of times one-way media, but you can use Twitter replies. You can make comments on Facebook. And so an initiative that we've got is how can we use that to better improve citizen engagement so that citizens don't have to come down to City Hall to testify at a city council meeting or give feedback to their elected officials. They can actually do that via comments to a blog or perhaps even by tweeting. You mentioned the Slave Lake fire, for example. It would be interesting to see if Twitter could be used in a situation like that to collect information from citizens about where the fire is moving and what's happening on the ground to better direct resources to it. So you better use the social media as an initiative for us as well.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, anytime a city can go about engaging more with the community is a good thing, and using social tools is certainly one way to do that. Is there any plan for, say, for example, adopting the use of, say, wikis in policy or discussions there? Anything like that on the horizon?
Well, one of the projects we've got is something called Seattle Speaks Online.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's all ready to go. But the idea would be that you take a particular initiative. My best example is the city has got a plot of land in a certain neighborhood. What do you do with that plot of land? Do you make it into a park, a children's playground? Do you sell it for commercial use? Just allow it to be vacant, make it into a parking lot? If you put out a question like that, Seattle Speaks Online will allow citizens to contribute their ideas and then actually read and vote on each other's ideas as well. And you can conduct an online debate for a period of days and gather new ideas to solve a specific problem in a neighborhood or the city.
Yeah, that's a great example. You know, we picked up on a similar format a while ago. We launched some websites, one called futureedmonton.ca, and it's picking up on the similar sort of thread where citizens can offer up what's important to them moving into the future, what they'd like to see, and then others can vote on it, comment on it, and this is a format that I think is a really positive one, and when you can get momentum, right, to get citizens to actually go there, use it, and not be just lurkers, but actually engage and offer up something as simple as a vote sometimes, you can see some really cool things happen. But with respect to that broadband plan, I think that's really going to help with that digital divide in the city of Seattle and elsewhere. Obviously, we're still struggling with that up here in Alberta in the sense that we have what's called the Alberta SuperNet, and that's been in place it's been in place now for a number of years, and it actually reached out to 422 communities here in the province of Alberta. The problem that is now still an ongoing issue is that digital divide for those folks in rural communities that still don't have access to high-speed internet. They're still working off a 56K dial-up modem in some cases. And so there really is that digital divide in terms of just based on speed, simply based on speed and the fact that they just can't keep up. And so that looks like something that's on your guys' radar as well.
Absolutely. And SuperNet's a great example. In rural areas, it might not be economically feasible for telecommunications companies and definitely not cable companies to build out. And that's where the province or the city taking action to make sure that all neighborhoods, regardless of their economic status, and all communities, regardless of their economic status, have connections to high-speed broadband.
Fantastic. Well, Bill, thank you so very much for being on Gov2 with us today. It's been fantastic catching up with you and learning about all the great stuff that's happening down in one of my favorite cities, the city of Seattle. Please stay in touch online. And you know what? If some of your folks and colleagues weren't able to tune into the show today live, it's certainly going to be on demand here very shortly. So we'll make sure we let you know about that. And I hope that you can spend some time watching some of our episodes. And if there's folks that you think that should be on our show from whether it's the city of Seattle region or Washington State or beyond, please let us know. We're on every Thursday afternoon at 1:30, and we hope to have you as a regular audience member into the future.
Thank you very much. And you can be sure that I'll be tweeting about your show as well, Walter.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, folks, thank you so much for watching Gov2. We will see you next Thursday at 1:30 right here on FuseLogic TV. Thank you very much for watching.